Hello, I hope you're having a great week. Welcome back. Today we're doing lecture 5, so the last lecture in this series of researching the audience. In my opinion, today's one is the most interesting one out of the 5 because it's about music. So today we're having a look at music research. Okay, so what we're looking at today is from page 444 to 449 in Next Level Radio. Don't worry about this section, we'll get to that later on. So why radio stations do music research? Radio stations commit to doing music research to figure out what their audience wants to hear. Rather than just guessing what I think they want to hear and pulling out a couple of songs out of a hat, every song listeners hear playing on the radio are actually only there because the music research that they should have completed would have told them that their listeners would probably like to hear that song. Like with anything, research isn't always perfect and it can't please everybody, but radio stations get much better results by carrying out music research than by simply guessing which song will pass better with the listener. There's also a lot of benefits to doing music research. Obviously, the first one would be the fact that you're satisfying your listener, but it also helps the station to get a better view on their listeners' taste as a whole, which will also help them to select better music in the future. Music research is a very precise and targeted process and involves consistent, intuitive results that can be replicated again and again. If done right, as we've seen before with the research, the idea is that you can't just replicate everything. It's important to realize that radio stations do music research for their listeners. That's why at the end of the day, it gets done. No one is going to keep tuning into a radio station if they never hear anything that they like. Why on earth would I listen if I don't like the music? So in essence, what it is by creating music surveys, the radio station has an excellent starting point based on the demographics of their listeners. Think about when you listen to radio. I assume most of the time you will be listening to music radio stations. So how much music do you hear when you listen to radio? How much music do you think is played? How much time is spent on ads? If you think about it, the majority of what you hear is music, right? Yes, they talk, obviously, but the majority is music. So how do you think they would decide which music to playlist? Do you think it's the program manager that just goes, I heard this song, I like this song, I'm going to put it on air and see what happens? Or do you think that every single that gets sent through to the station, whether it's South African or international, gets playlisted? How many songs do you think is on the average radio station? Do you think they have thousands of songs? I once came across a radio station that had 14,000 songs. What do you think of that? Do you think that works? There's a lot of things to consider when you start talking about music research. So what we're going to be doing now is we'll be starting at the beginning. And the beginning is just the fact that it's music radio. So if we start at the beginning, music research. Any music radio worth their salt will have done some kind of music research at some point. In the overall music radio space, music makes up approximately 80% of what gets played on the radio. It's the core of a radio station's content, and much of a radio station's success comes from finding the right mix of music for the right audience. So that's extremely important. And how do we do that? So to find the right mix, most commercial radio stations conduct music testing. In essence, what this means is they test songs to see if they resonate with their fans and then add the best performing songs onto the station's playlist, obviously in different rotations depending on the song. So most music testing starts with a market study of at least 250 respondents. So you can see it's quite a big group of people. It's not like the small focus groups we looked at in the previous class. The The market study will get a large group of listeners from a radio station's target market to fill out a survey about their likes, their wants, their needs, and their desires. In this market study, there are usually categories of songs grouped in genres, years of music styles, such as 2000s pop, rock, 80s classics, etc. Listeners are then asked to rate these genres and years in terms of their music taste. The information is then collated to reflect 4 or 5 main genres at the end of the day, and the years of music that are the most popular among the target market. So depending on the group sizes, any genre that is preferred by over 70 to 80% of the respondents is labeled as the genres of music that the target market loves listening to. Songs are then sourced for these specific genres and the years or styles, and an auditorium music test, or an AMT as we'll be calling it throughout, is then done on these songs. Okay, so if we look at an auditorium research, auditorium music tests are typically done in a large acoustically sensitive venue. So the idea is here that large groups of people are brought in to listen to hooks or choruses of a variety of songs. So a hook is literally just that, the catchy part of a song. So the part that you would recognize immediately. So the listeners that are brought in are then asked to rate these songs. Rating category and the questions asked to these listeners will differ between the research companies. So it depends on who's doing the research, but generally they asked, do you know this song? Obviously very important. And then secondly, if yes, how do you feel about the song? So with regards to your feelings of the song, you could either like a song, dislike it, you can love it, like it a little bit, be apathetic towards it, don't like it at all, or you can hate a song. So each participant in the study is given a pen and a paper with numbered lines on it, which they're asked to rate each song using a set of criteria. The songs are then played out on a speaker system, obviously in this acoustically sensitive venue, and all participants must then rate each song. I'm sure you can imagine this type of music research can be quite expensive, as there's a lot of factors to take into consideration here. So this would be similar to putting together a large focus group and having the technology to play music in a favorable setting, obviously nice acoustic, and capture the results across a wide range of people, respondents or participants that are there. Problem, who can easily be influenced by others with whom they are attending the AMT. So why would it be a problem if someone is easily influenced through other people? Think about our previous lesson with regards to research. Think about the 2 biases that we have. If there's an influence on the data, would the data be 100% valid? Would it be 100% correct? Obviously, it won't be, which might not have that big an influence at the end of the day on our music research, but you never know. If enough people are influenced by other people around them in the way that they would rate their music, it could skew the results at the end of the day. And the way that this has been adapted, I personally feel works a lot better. If we look at modern auditorium music tests, they are done electronically, so either in person or online. A market study here is typically used to source loved genres, years, or styles of music. Then the next step would be individual songs from each of these categories will be chosen. These are often the most popular songs from charts around the world, and then hooks are sourced for each of these songs. A valid AMT usually has between 700 and 1,500 songs. So it's quite a lot of songs, okay? It's not a small sample. Participants would then come in individually or in groups and are given computers or tablets. All the songs will be loaded onto these devices that you'll be given. And then you, in your own time, will get to play the hooks of every single song and electronically record your responses using the criteria provided. So here people can't be influenced as easily as they could with the previous way of conducting music research. So once all the participants have responded, the songs are captured into percentages and sorted in the following order. So by positive, negative, love, like, neutral, not like, tired of, familiar. So in this table, that's also in your textbook, the percentages that represent the number of participants who said they liked different songs are shown according to the correlating score that is assigned to those reactions. So it'll be sorted in quality and score. And then as you can see, like, positive score, obviously. Dislike means a negative score. Love means a love score. Like a little means a like score. Apathetic means a neutral score. Do not like means not a liked score. Hate means a tired of score. And know the song means a familiar score. Okay, so that is how it would be broken down. So songs are then placed in order of highest and lowest scores. This is called the sort of the music test. The sort helps to determine what songs are added to the radio station's playlist and in what rotations these songs will be played. So whether it's top 40, whether it's hot, whether it's recurrent, etc. A sort is also done according to a respondent's demographics, and these are then compared in order to determine the right mix for the entire target market overall. A basic and common sort usually consists of the following. So all the songs with a familiarity score of under 65% are deleted. The two strongest indicators are the love score and the tired of score. Okay, obviously either we love a song or we are really over it. We kind of hate that song. Songs on either end of these spectrums are then either kept or deleted from the playlist. The love scores of each of the target demographics are compared to find the top testing tracks. All of the other categories are used to find cross-referencing demographics to help sort by popularity. So once this list is complete, you have about 300 to 400 tracks that will be left. This will then make up the bulk of your radio station's playlist. This is also known in music radio stations as rotation or music rotation. It's important to note that many of the AMTs are now going fully electronic and remote. This means that participants can log onto programs remotely via the internet and have a set time limit to listen to the hooks on their own time in their home. As I'm sure you can imagine, this has greatly reduced the costs of AMTs, which mean they can be done more often with larger samples. Being able to do this more frequently and with larger samples means that we can get more accurate results that can help optimize our playlists. Incentives can also be worked in, like chances to win something or cash incentives are given to participants to complete AMTs for radio stations. So here's an example of what the music would look like when it's being collated into those scores. So here you'd see the overall score. So here you'll see the average scores. Here's the female scores and here are the male scores. And down here, this example specifically, you'll see is about Duffy's Mercy. And how good it scored with the 25 to 34-year-old females, but the 25 to 34-year-old males liked it a lot less. This is a good reason for a close look at all the scores for the songs and the research that you do. Because what might happen here now is if you as a guy tune into the radio station during this time and Duffy was playing, you might switch over, whereas the woman would stay. Okay, I just want to give you an idea of what it looked like. Unfortunately, the only example that I could find is a very old one, which you'll see now. But at least it's an example so you can see what it looked like. So here is an example of the radio music research. So here they started using technology. This was a real music test. As you can see, people came in, they sat. The listener spent a couple of hours listening to each song. Here's a set of dials that were put on each table for the tests. You can see this is old. This was old school. Okay, here obviously you could put it on whichever song you wanted to. Here are just people monitoring it. Here the people are sitting in their little rows. So here they're busy tabulating the results. As the results were collected electronically, they were able to produce an almost infinite variety of reports. Just whatever the station wanted, they could do at this point. Okay, obviously there was it was viewable. And then this is kind of what it looked like at the end. So in this case, in this example specifically, green meant great, blue meant good, yellow means marginal, and orange or red means bad and terrible. So as we've mentioned, the advantage of electronic testing is that the results are ready within a few hours of the test. And then the station can have a look at it and see what's going on. Nowadays, most companies are doing it digital. So that's the auditorium testing. Next, we're moving on to call-outs. So call-out music testing is commonly used by music radio stations. It's based on the same premise as an AMT, so as the auditorium music testing, but it's used to test current hits on a much smaller scale. Call-outs are normally done on a weekly basis and can show the listener preference often enough to help shape current playlists and rotations of the radio station. So you can imagine how important it is to do this. If a radio station plays current music that is more recent than the AMT, it will need to test current music using a call-out method or its digital equivalent. So if a radio station is playing current music that is more recent than its last AMT, it will have to do a call-out or its digital equivalent to test the music. Participants are called over the phone, hence call-out, and tests are done via the telephone or secure websites. Exactly like an AMT, hooks or choruses are then played to the participants via the telephone. And the participant of the study would then either rate the music verbally or using the keypad of their phone or by way of survey questions electronically. Typically, during one of these tests, a radio station will test between 10 to 15 songs in one call-out. Please ignore the grammatical mistakes that I'm seeing as I'm going through this. The version of the PowerPoint that you'll download won't have them in it, I promise. If a call-out is done electronically, participants are normally given 1 week to submit their answers. If it's done via the phone, obviously the idea is that they should complete it right there and then on the phone. A valid call-out test would have between 50 to 200 participants, so not quite as big as the AMT, but also still a large number of people. So it's slightly different to an AMT in that they look mostly at the tired of scores and the loved scores to help craft the playlist and keep it current and up to date. These scores are tracked against the previous call-out scores to evaluate whether a song is becoming more popular. And if this is the case, it means it should be played more often. If the song is losing its popularity, it means it should be played less. This literally helps with the music rotation of a radio station. In call-out research, stations are also looking for songs that are burning and are becoming unpopular at speed, or songs that are seen as stiff and just never take off with the audience. These two sets of songs are then removed from the playlist or wrested out of the rotation so they don't cause the listener to tune out. I'm sure you can imagine that call-out testing is relatively inexpensive versus AMTs that are expensive. And it's quite a significant asset to the music radio stations that play current music, especially as we have such a fast-paced music environment where popular artists can literally release an album online overnight for the public to be able to download the next morning on iTunes, for instance. This can also result in overnight hits. So this can then obviously change the shape of the playlist on a music radio station significantly in a very short space of time. And the call-out research can help stations stay on top of these. So why is it important? Why do we have to do this testing, the music testing? In summary, by using AMTs and call-out testing, radio stations can populate their playlists with the best possible selection of music and are guided to shape their music offering. Optimally, a radio station should do 2 market studies per year, 2 AMTs per year, and a weekly call-out research. So it's a lot of research in 1 year. So besides these 2 main methods, some radio stations use alternative music tests from time to time. This is not something you necessarily have to know, it's just interesting to know. They include qualitative methods, so like the focus groups that we've spoken about, studio tests, where listeners are invited to the radio station's studio, where they can repeatedly listen to different selections of hooks before evaluating them, often in combination with focus groups. Paper questionnaires, where listeners receive questionnaires with a listing of titles and artists, which they must categorize and evaluate without actually hearing the music. This is normally only used, though, by radio stations with very old listeners who are not used to online questionnaires or polls. And then a lot of, especially community radio stations, but a lot of radio stations use online feedback via the station's homepage and their social media platforms. So evaluations of titles of the playlist, which is the online version, in essence, of a call-in. There's also then that possibility for the listener to request their favorite songs that are still not part of the playlist. The problem is that although the variety of these alternative methods and sources seem to be promising and fruitful once you first start with them, radio stations have to be careful. So you have to be careful with drawing the right conclusions and decisions from this data, because in most cases, the listeners decide by themselves to be part of the focus group. So again, think about what we said in the previous lessons. So they decide on their own to take part in a call-in or to give some feedback online via the station's homepage. This means that from the start, these people are biased and therefore not representative of what the whole target group of the radio station would think, but they're a very good sample for the station's hardcore fans, if they're hardcore listeners. And then there's another very special case of music testing, that is the so-called mapping study that is used by radio startups. So what mapping studies do is they test up to 50 music genres, each represented by a couple of titles, let's say 3 titles or hooks, to gather data about compatible music preferences of the listeners of a well-defined radio market. So here, listeners are not only asked to rate different music genres, they are also asked to allocate, if possible, music genres to existing radio stations of that market. The main aim for most of these mapping studies is to identify noteworthy and profitable groups of listeners with distinct patterns of music preferences. In other words, mapping studies generally try to find a market niche. That's basically what they do. So it's so important to make sure that you understand your audience and you know exactly who you're catering for and what they like and they don't like, is the fact that there are other podcasts or that there are other systems out there, like, for instance, iTunes with the iTunes charts. Music is still the main reason why people switch on the radio to listen to a station. So you need to make sure that you're not losing your listener to something like iTunes, for instance. So in your opinion, if you look at the music research that we just did, where do you think that RAMs and PPM would fall? Do you think that music research is similar to RAMs and PPM? If yes, why? If no, why? Where do you think it falls? If you look at the way that the research is conducted, something to think about. I really want to know what you think about this. So just send me a telegram quickly. Just let me know, what do you think? Do you think that music research is similar to RAMs and PPM research? So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a mini auditorium music test. So this would have been done in class if we were all together. So this makes it a little bit more difficult now, but we're still going to be able to do it. What you're going to do for me is we're going to listen to snippets of songs. I want to know from you for each of those songs. Firstly, do you know the song? Did you know the song before we played it now? Secondly, if you do, how do you feel about the song? We're going to base this on Boston Media House's radio station, okay? So on the BMH. So imagine that radio station and what they normally would play. Now we're going to listen to these 20 and see if there's anything here that we can add to the playlist. Okay, so here we go with the first track. Now I want you to let me know whether you knew it firstly. Secondly, if you did, whether you liked it or not. So that should be quite easy. Second one. I can get you up my mind. I can get you up my mind. I can get you up my mind. I can get you up. Okay, again, same thing. I want to know from you whether you knew it, yes or no. And if you did know it, whether you like it, whether it's neutral, whether you hate it, etc. Looking at all the options on the PowerPoint slide. Third one. And I know we weren't perfect, but I've never felt this way for no one. Same thing. Did you know it? Yes or no? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you hate it? Was it neutral? Fifth one. Now for the same one, quickly just jot down what you think there. Did you know it or not? And did you like it? Did you not? Sixth one. Okay, same one, same thing, just jot it down. Next one, number 7. Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. Okay, jot down what you think about that one. Whether I'm sure you know it, but yes, what you think about that one. Next one. You are the only one I'll ever love. Gotta tell you, yeah, you. So that one, same thing. Did you know it? And then where does it lie for you? Second last one. Jot that one down quickly. And then the last one. All right, so I thought I would save you from doing 20, especially seeing as we're doing it via video and not live. So there's the 10 songs. Did you know them? If yes, how do you feel about the songs? You like, dislike, love, like a little, apathetic, do not like, or hate the songs? Let me know, okay? So just send them through to me so I can collate them, and then we can see where we stand with our little mini auditorium music test. All right, so your homework for today, what I want you to do is to go to page 447. At the bottom there, you'll see it starts with activity 11D. So what I want you to do for me is to complete activity 11D, question 1. What that says is that you just need to explain what key measures mean for this radio station. Then what they've done is they've broken it down. So they tell you where to go and find the information on the BRC RAM FAQ page. I don't know if you can remember, but I went through that with you also, where I showed you the page with the questions on it. But yes, so what they're showing you here is a 1-week cumulative figure for a station, the demographic information, further demographic information, and the radio listening graph. Okay, so at the end of this, where we are at now is that you should be able to decipher all of this. Okay. So when we started this chapter introduced the methodologies and types of research conducted within the radio industry. It offered detail around the qualitative and the quantitative methods of research. You had a detailed account of the radio audio measurement, specifically as the industry benchmark study in South Africa. And we just went through the music research as the core component of music format radio stations. We also got a bit of an insight about how the radio industry has changed over the years, especially with regards to research, and how this research is then utilized by radio stations and other players within the radio industry. Okay, that brings us to the end of this lesson for today. And the next lesson, we're starting with something new. So I hope you're excited for it, and see you there. Bye.